Hey guys, welcome to Tuesday's video. Sorry to cut off so quickly on the last video. I have 15 minutes to make these videos and I did not keep track of my time well enough. So for today's video, we are going to talk about a couple of different things. Analysis versus summary, we've already started to talk about that for Monday's video. The discussion section is what I'm going to focus on more so in this video so that the discussion 13, which is due tomorrow at 6 p.m., will be manageable for you guys. So your only homework for today is to read pages 80, 91, and 92 in Jack, and keep working on your discussion section because, again, you'll have 2 to 3 findings and discussions due for your peer editing, and then by the final paper, 4 to 5 findings and discussion section for the qualitative research paper. All right, let me know if you have questions about that. We, again, are building up your finding section slowly. So what we're going to do is there are two things. The pages in Jack are about passive and active voice, which are stylistic details. So I will start with those so we can get those out of the way, and then we'll jump into a couple of sample papers. So in your book, there are a couple of different examples they give you for passive and active voice. So the main thing here is active voice is used more for the humanities and passive voice is used more for scientific writing. So you probably use passive voice in your all majors. I just want to make sure you know the difference between them so that if someone says write in passive voice or write in active voice, you know what that means. And you can manipulate sentences a little bit better once you understand the syntax or sentence structure of passive and active voice. So this it deals with the entire structure of the whole sentence, but mostly with the verbs in that sentence. So you can look in your books for a couple of examples, like on page 91, you have 7 it says to eliminate needless uses of passive voice. It has 7 steps for you to find what passive voice is and to get rid of it. So in the humanities, we are trained, like I mentioned, to do active voice most of the time. I'm not going to count off for any of this, but I just, again, want you to have the knowledge of passive and active voice. So let's look at this really quickly, and I will put this on eCampus in case you want to spend more time with it. But in an active voice sentence, the subject does the action. So I don't know what, in terms of grammar, they are teaching these days, like in high schools and such, probably none. So let's just take a look at this really quickly. The subject of the sentence is Liz. The verb is played, and then the object is the piano, or just piano. So first, like it says on page 91, identify the action in the sentence or the verb. So played, and this is singular past tense verb. And then I would ask, who is doing the playing? Well, Liz is doing the playing. So here, the subject of the sentence is the noun that is doing the verb, which makes it active voice because the noun or the subject is the thing acting on the verb in the sentence. So in passive voice, the subject receives the action. For example, here, the piano was played by Liz. So here we have an inverted sentence. The subject of the sentence is actually piano here. Our verbs are was played, and then by Liz is a prepositional phrase because by is a preposition. So in subjects of the sentences are never found in prepositional phrases. So that's why it's piano. But Liz is receiving the action here. The piano was played by Liz. Like our car was hit by that driver. So the verb here, the subject is receiving the action of the verb. So there are a couple more examples on this, and I won't make you do this chart here. If you want extra practice, let me know. I highly doubt anyone will have time for that, but this is just a really quick lesson in passive and active voice, so that, again, in your future, you can have some familiarity with it. I talk to people a lot in writing studios where I ask them where they say use active voice or use passive voice, and students don't have any clue what this means, so I just want to make sure you guys have a clue. Okay, so we stopped abruptly with this paper, and I'm going to go through it quickly, and we're going to jump into the discussion section as well. Then I'm going to show you another example where I asked the student a lot of questions because she mostly summarized. She didn't go into analysis again, which is the bulk of the discussion section. And then I'll show you an example where a student does analysis really well. Okay, so we talked about this one very briefly. It cut me off. The chart is not standardized, and we talked about how these can be more standardized. And then we talked about this yes or no question. He has 2 of them here, which gets him down to 5 figures, and I believe 6 findings then. But these 2 should just be bullet points, like I mentioned many times before. All right, so here we have discussion section. That's all correct, how he used the template. Figure 1 shows that these points of data are to show that my demographic of surveys, so obviously we did lessons in concision. These lengthy phrases like this, that these points of data are to show. This is clunky, it's unclear. I just put figure 1 shows that the survey participants are primarily people who don't necessarily enjoy scary movies. That's a much more compact sentence. So don't forget your lessons on concision. Those are going to be throughout the whole semester. And then he put, I think this is to show that this isn't really correct to people who would enjoy scary movies. So I kind of gave up on that sentence. I just put, what does this mean? I couldn't fix it in any way because he was completely not clear. And for you guys, because the summer is so fast, I'm doing these side comments, which most of the time students learn more from the side comments anyway. And the concision points, sometimes I highlight and I put delete and then like add this word. So I'm trying to give you the same level of feedback. From my interviewee, he stated, and then he has a direct quote. So something like this, which for when you're incorporating research and not an interview, because again, you don't have to do an interview, but you do have to include 4 sources, you can just say X from wherever stated or states, comma, and then have your source here. This should go inside the quotation marks here. He showed that he was a good figure to go more in depth, probably instead of the students. So this to me, it says very little. I can't understand what he's talking about. It seems like he was rushed when he wrote it, probably so, not sure. It's a very low scored paper because of all these ambiguities and because he doesn't have substantial information from either his survey data or his research data to present his findings. And just the sloppiness of phrases like this show me that he hasn't proofread it. He didn't go to the writing studio. He didn't come to me for more help. All of these things are kind of indicators of a student who doesn't care about the progress in the class, or he's just too busy, he shouldn't be taking the class right now, something along these lines. So just keep all that in mind, like present polished work. And I understand that it's a progress-driven class, like a process-driven class, so you should be improving. So make sure in your revisions that you make the correct revisions. I always try to make sure you have some sort of positive feedback, when you're doing something well, like this guy, Andres Kiel, a professor of psychology at University of Florida, states, and then he has a direct quote here, that's great, he needs to put the page number after, anyway, so explain, etc., etc. So I'm going to go ahead and move, you kind of, I think, get the point here. One more point, I guess, would be he included this ridiculously long quote, and I know all of the cheats, okay? I've been a student a long time. I know about the period rule, I know about the margins rule, the commas, the insertion of extremely long direct quotes. I know about all of these. I work with students all the time, and I have been a student and am a student myself. So if you're struggling to generate material, it's better that you just ask me, and I can probably provide you with a list of questions to help you generate that material or some suggestions. I'd rather you do that than try to skirt your way around the work. So again, just try to think ahead, and something like this would not be helpful here because I'm not grading his ability to choose a quote and to incorporate it the most, I'm grading his ability to analyze his own primary data or primary research. So I said, this is way too long. I put, who says it? Because with the exaggerated exclamation point and question mark, as a means to get the student to correctly incorporate sources. Okay, so that's that. And then the works cited page, yeah, don't number your sources. This is the MLA 8th edition. In like a medical journal style, you would number your sources. We're not doing that for the humanities, and it needs 4 sources minimum, etc. Okay, so let's take a look at a different paper where I essentially asked the student almost after every paragraph in her discussion section to analyze further. So we're going down to the findings. The findings she did completely wrong. She had to redo this, redo the whole thing, and change these to approachable charts and tables. She did have them in a presentation earlier, but she just didn't put them in her paper, so I just asked what happened to them. Was there a formatting error? So trying to give you guys the benefit of the doubt. So here, let's just look at a couple of the ends of her paragraphs. So both said the Hunger Games, both as in, I'm sorry about that. Computer's freaking out. Finding one could be very significant. It shows a large change in trend from the rest of the survey group. Both of the anomalies were male engineers, which I'm not sure if that had to do with anything, but could do with cynicism toward romance. Her whole project was over perceptions of dystopian romance and how like realistic they were in the real world. One said that they enjoyed romance dystopias, while the other said they didn't, because there were 2 guys on her surveys that said they didn't enjoy dystopian romances at all, which surprised her because she thought, based on gender stereotypes, that males would enjoy romance and dystopias a lot less than they indicated, but there are only 2 males that really indicated that they had little to no interest in dystopian romances. So that's what this both is. Both said the Hunger Games as their known movie or book, which shows that they know a large franchise with a large audience. So I just put, so what does this information tell you? She basically summarized her first finding, which she didn't really include because there was no chart, graph, or table. And then I said, you did a good job of summarizing, but where's the analysis? What does this data inform you of? So likewise down here, she has a lot of good summary, and then I just say unpack the summary that she's doing here, especially the last part about attractiveness. Go more in depth about gender representation, because she's talking all about gender and like how she thought one gender would respond one way, one gender didn't, and then her findings were completely different, as I just mentioned. So what does this comment on those gender representations or the expectations she had for gender? Are males watching dystopian movies with female leads to objectify them, celebrate a female in a role of power, pull this apart? So she kind of just dropped this bomb of gendered information, and she didn't unpack it. So keep in mind, if you're talking about these really complicated subjects like race or gender or anything like that, class, etc., make sure you start pulling these apart rather than just leaving them as they are. So again, she had a lot of good summary here. What would this genre change mean? Because she proposed that there might be, we might need to change the definitions of romance dystopia as a whole. And I was like, that's great, that's a good start, but why? Why is this important? So a lot of this was just incomplete. And as you can see here, her paper was pretty short. A lot of it was because of this incomplete information. Consensus, how can you answer your question overall in a conclusion type paragraph here? So that was important as well. Okay, so this paper I might actually put up because I'm going to run out of time again, but this student had one of the best discussion sections of my class that I graded last semester, and you'll still notice that there are a lot of notes, but I'll go ahead and put this one anonymously online so you can look through it quickly, and we might for the next video go through it so it's not additional homework, but just so you can get an idea ahead of time of what I'm expecting in the discussion section. So I put like, this is amazing, should be featured in your concluding paragraph, etc. All right, guys, that's it for this video. I'll put this online, and remember that your discussion is due on